With Demon Slayer, we've been introduced to a lot of powerful demons. However, have you ever wondered who are the 10 strongest demons in Demon Slayer? Well, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the 10 strongest demons ranked from weakest to strongest. And for this video, we are going purely off of the strength and combat feats. So as always, if you disagree with the placement of a character on the list, let me know down in the comment section below. Starting things off at number 10, we're going to be going with Kaigaku, the demon who replaced Daki and her brother as the Upper Moon 6 in the final arc. As Zenitsu's former senior, you expect him to be on this list. As a demon, he has the benefit of having trained in the form of thunder breathing when he was a human, and he's more skilled at thunder breathing than Zenitsu if we only go by the number of techniques that he's mastered, but Zenitsu is actually superior. As a former demon slayer, he's extremely deadly, but when we factor in everything and according to Yushiro, if Kaigaku would have mastered his powers, he would have been able to kill Zenitsu, which is another reason why he's further down this list. That being said, as a user of thunder breathing, speed is definitely something that's a strong point for him, especially his reflexes. Also, when you factor in how much of Muzan's blood was ingested by him, he's even faster than he was when he was a human, and for a majority of his battle with Zenitsu, he was the one who was in total control of that fight, which makes a lot of sense. He was supposed to be the one who inherited the Thunder Hashira title at some point in the series. After becoming a demon, he was shown being able to manipulate actual lightning in battle, which only made his thunder breathing that much more impressive, which is a large part of the reason why he believed he surpassed thunder breathing style itself. At one point, we see him nearly destroy Zenitsu's eyeballs and leave a significant amount of damage on Zenitsu, and in their battle, he was moving at speeds that gave Zenitsu quite a bit of a trouble to keep up with. As a thunder breathing user, we've seen him master 5 forms of thunder breathing, but ironically, he never mastered the first form, and even with the way that he used his blood demon art to amp up his speed, it makes you wonder how deadly he could have been if he would have been able to master the first form at some point and then amped up the first form by using his blood demon art. Moving into number 9, we're going to be going with Gyutaro. Gyutaro is previously stated to be powerful enough that Muzan did believe that had he fought without Daki at the start with the fight with Tengen, he could have won that fight, considering that he was able to fight off Uzui and push him to his limits and was strong enough that he forced Tanjiro to awaken his Demon Slayer mark. I think this is an appropriate spot to place him here on this list. Part of what makes him so deadly is his ability to detach his core from his body and even augment the powers of his sister when he gives her his eye, which also gives him the ability to coordinate his attacks with her. Also, given that he can't be killed unless his head's cut off at the same time as his sister, is another thing he has going for him. As we saw in the battles with Tanjiro and Tengen, his speed is pretty insane, moving so fast it looks like he's teleporting when moving at high speeds, and the fact that he's easily keeping up with Tengen, who is the fastest hashira in terms of raw speed, is absolutely telling, because Gyutaro was not only keeping up with Tengen, but he was also landing hits and moving away before Tengen could fully react, and fast enough to block a kunai assault from Tengen's wife with utter ease. His ability to make lethal poison that is placed into his blood sickles makes him even deadlier. Those that aren't killed right away find themselves weakened, where even Tengen, someone who has a high tolerance to poison, was eventually hampered by it. Since the poison did come from Gyutaro, this has to be factored in. Again, given that Tengen is immune to poison, speaks volumes to the potency of it. His blood demon art is blood manipulation, which allows him to manipulate his blood into becoming weapons like sickles, and given the sheer number of blades and how much he can span them, it's arguable that he doesn't run out of blood while he's using his blood demon art. He's also shown the ability to alter the trajectory of his slashes and changing their shape, which when combined with his poison inside of them makes him a much deadlier opponent. The rotating flying blood sickles sees him release a wave of slashes at massive range that can move in a circular manner that serve both his offense as well as defense, like when he used them to prevent his head from being cut off. The fact that Tanjiro needed his Demon Slayer mark to awaken to win is pretty telling. Moving into number 8, we're going to be going with Nakime. Her blood demon art is unorthodox but useful, allowing for her to avoid Mitsuri and Iguru before beheading her in a battle. In the Infinity Castle arc, she's able to detach her eyeballs from her body, which allows her to spy on targets from long range, and this allowed her to locate all the Demon Slayers who raided the Infinity Castle. And based upon the battle in this arc, we know that her combat speed isn't anything to turn our noses up to, because she was shown being able to react to several of Iguro and Mitsuri's attacks, with both of them being pretty fast in terms of combat speed. Her blood demon art allows her to hold an absolute dominion over the space of the Infinity Castle and alter it when she plays her Biwa. She is shown being able to make rooms in the pillars and using them to crush her targets. She's shown shifting the rooms and the walls like they're extensions of her own limbs, and she's been shown making portals that can transport people out of the Infinity Castle. castle or to other places within the castle, and even using it defensively for one of Mitsuri's attacks that were aimed at her. While she's not shown in a super complex way in terms of battle strength, this overpowered ability, while very simple to the point it's childish, it was enough to give two very powerful demon slayers enough of a battle that the annoyance was clear when they were dealing with her in combat, which does get factored in here. Moving into number 7, we're going to be going with Gyokko. Gyokko's power isn't to be unmatched, being stronger than both Gyutaro and Daki, and in this battle against Muichiro, we see part of what makes him so formidable. He was able to outright overpower Muichiro for a good portion of the fight and almost successfully killed Muichiro, a demon slayer prodigy and a descendant of Yorichi, but it becomes pretty clear in my opinion, had he not been toying around and fought with killing intent from the start, Muichiro never would have gotten to a point where he awakened his demon slayer mark, which in of itself was enough to allow Muichiro to kill him. A big part of what makes him so deadly is his insane durability and the thick scales that are layered over his skin that makes him damn near impossible to cut through, and the speed is fast enough to react to and avoid several of Muichiro's attacks, and was more than able to hold his own against Demon Slayer Mark Muichiro for a brief period of time, including avoiding a sneak attack and moving so fast that he basically came as close as you can to literally teleporting during a fight. With this Blood Demon art, we see him being able to move between the various bases that he has, which makes him incredibly hard to deal with in battle. This is before we even consider the fact that when he touches something in its true form, it turns it into a fish. Techniques like the 1,000 needle kill fish are broken because he summons fish demons from his vases that shoot out large numbers of poisonous needles. 10,000 gliding slime fish allows him to summon 10,000 fish from various pots to attack his enemy, and the fishes, if they are cut, release a poison before they die, and that poison is something that can be absorbed through the skin. Moving into number 6, we're going to be going with Hatengu. Hatengu, in particular his clones, when we factor in the different fighting styles each of them have, while he does hide away his main body, his clones, they're no joke. They were able to take on and pressure a stronger Tanjiro than the one who fought against Upper Moon number 6. Nezuko and Genya, each powerful in their own right and more than hold them off. When the clones fused into the Zohaku 10 body, that clone became a freaking monster, fighting off Mitsuri, Tanjiro, Genya, and Nezuko at various points during that battle. Despite Mitsuri awakening her Demon Slayer mark, she was still on the defensive in that battle, and at times it looks as if she was being pressured to a point where she might still fall in the battle despite the Demon Slayer mark, and had to rely and trust in the other Demon Slayers to find the main body and destroy it. Even Tanjiro makes it known that Mitsuri was in over her head despite the Demon Slayer mark, realizing that she was going to run out of stamina at some point and get killed. Between that and being able to survive the bullets from Genya's Nichiren steel bullets, the same bullets that tore off the necks of his clones, his durability is pretty insane. Even when Genya tried to chop off his head, the blade broke apart, and even when Tanjiro turns his blade red, he was able to initially tank it briefly without a hit. Though with more effort, Tanjiro did make more inroads into trying to cut off his head. His reflexes are also impressive as hell, evident by the fights that we see in the Swordsmith Village art. Most dangerous is obviously his Blood Demon art, the emotion manifestation, which allows him to make clones that receive a kanji for specific emotions on their tongues, and all of them have different powers, and each of them are incredibly strong. Facing all of them at once is a freaking nightmare given how versatile they are, which is a big part of the reason why he's as high up on the list as he is. One has the ability to make electricity shock the enemy that can also cover a wide area to shock multiple people. Another has the ability to send powerful gusts of wind strong to clear an entire area and leave behind craters. Another has the power to release sound waves that can stun the enemy. The Zohaku 10 clone can use all the prior mentioned abilities, but at a higher level than all the prior clones. Moving into number 5, we're going to be going with Akaza. Akaza is easily one of the strongest characters in the series, being so strong it took Tanjiro and Giyu, both of whom had their Demon Slayer marks awakened, to try and take him down, which makes a lot of sense given he wasn't using his full power against Rengoku, who before all the other Hashiras got power clipped via the Demon Slayer mark and the training that took place before all of this. Rengoku was easily one of the stronger Hashira at that time, which is why his death shook the Hashira to the core like it did, with many of them expressing shock that he'd been defeated. Due to being a demon, his stats got a massive boost, which is why when you look at his insane martial arts skills, which are good enough to hold their own against high-level swordsmen, and combined with his ability to sense fighting spirit and predict the movements of his enemies' attacks, makes him one of the scariest demons on the list. It took Tanjiro, whose level of swordsmanship was easily Hashira level, level by the end of the series, entering into a selfless state, which is a hard counter to Akaza's extrasensory perception. Even after losing his head, Upper Moon number 3, through sheer willpower, was able to keep fighting, and he regrew his head, and had he not lost that strong willpower, there's a solid argument that he could have killed both Tanjiro and Giyu if the fighting had continued. This is even crazier when you consider the fact that Upper Moon 3 never ate any women during his time as a demon, which, according to Douma, slowed down his growth as a demon by a considerable amount. When you think about it, him being this strong as a demon makes perfect sense, given that when he was a child, he was slapboxing with grown men and outright dogging them out, and when he became an adult, he took out 67 swordsmen on his own using his bare hands, which was enough that Muzan, the king of the demon, who saw all types of crazy things in his lifetime, saw this and swore up and down that it had to have been the work of a demon behind the carnage. So when you make someone this strong into a demon, you can see why Upper Moon 3 is as powerful as he is. When you factor in his insane durability, he becomes an even more formidable character, being able to give Rengoku trouble when he tried to chop off his limbs and unable to chop off his head, stopping just short of being able to complete the task, though Rengoku was severely injured when this happened. Given a much stronger Tanjiro, who had long since surpassed Rengoku, and Giyu were having trouble with Akaza, I think it's safe to say that if Akaza had been 100% serious and fully on guard, Rengoku's blade wouldn't have gotten as far as it did. His regen is just downright broken, being able to regenerate his head even after it's cut off, and based on what we've seen, even before we get to this, his regen speed appeared to be even faster than the upper ranks that are below him. His combat speed was enough that Inosuke, someone who has really good perception, described it as being on a different dimension, and even when he was facing Giyu, who had his Demon Slayer mark awakened, Upper Moon 3 had no problem matching his speed. His combat power is downright broken as well, being strong enough to shatter swords and destroy a chunk of Douma's head with an attack, and when using his Blood Demon art, his strength gets another boost on top of his physical strength, where we see him leave craters behind in the ground from some of his attacks. This much force behind the attacks of easily one of the best hand-to-hand combat specialists in the series is a recipe for instant death. Moving into number 4, we're going to be going with Douma, i.e. Upper Moon number 2. In the final arc, we see he was able to downright overwhelm Shinobu and hold off Inosuke and Kano, both of whom after the training arc were easily at a hashira level. He's cocky for a few good reasons. He was able to surpass Akaza in only a short amount of time, and given how powerful Upper Moon number 3 is, it makes you realize how big of a monster he is. The fact that he was able to absorb humans by touching them in only a few seconds makes him really deadly. Proof of this comes from how he was able to quickly take Shinobu into his body, killing her almost immediately when he did so. Granted, we know in hindsight Shinobu allowed this to happen so that she could kill Upper Moon 2 from within, but this is a pretty scary ability when you look at it at just its face value. His durability is also off the charts. We know Kano and Inosuke needing to work together to cut off his head, and this is on top of Shinobu's poison taking a very heavy toll on his body. We have a very strongly implied statement that shows that Douma's even faster, because when Akaza seemingly speed blitzed him and destroyed his head, Douma made it a point to say that if he wanted to, he could have easily dodged the attack, and based on the wording, I don't think this is something that he was lying about, but given how easily Upper Moon number 3 was able to match the speed of Demon Slayer Mark Giyu, this makes Douma one of the strongest demons in the series. The only reason why Inosuke and Kano were able to even stay in the fight as long as they were was a combination of Shinobu's poison and the fact that Douma was playing around with them. If he really had killing intent when he snatched Kano's sword, or he had taken Inosuke's mask, both of them would have been dead. The only other person who comes even close to him in terms of hand-to-hand combat is Upper Moon 3, and even then, Douma's just that much further ahead. His Blood Demon art allows him to generate ice from his flesh and from his blood, as well as manipulate it however he sees fit in the battle, making it one of the more versatile Blood Demon arts that we see in the series, and the temperature's cold enough that even Shinobu worried that her lungs are gonna burst. Douma is another example of characters in this verse who is a matchup nightmare. Moving into number 3, we're gonna be going Kokushibo, Upper Moon number 1. Now this shouldn't come as a shock either. Being the older twin brother of Yoichi, the strongest demon slayer to ever live, you rightfully expect this man to personify greatness on a different level, i.e. God mode, and that's basically what he does. A former demon slayer turned into a demon, he became the very thing he used to hunt down, which is a bit of poetic irony, but it's telling that for a majority of the series in terms of demons, he's second only to Muzan for 99.9% of the series in terms of sheer power. Anyone fast enough to blitz Upper Moon 3 and cut off his arm before he could react is a problem child, and given that he's been around for 500 100 years as a demon. That's a lot of power and experience as a demon, which combined with this Demon Slayer training, it makes him extremely deadly. Even scarier is the fact that Upper Moon 1 also awakened the Demon Slayer mark during his lifetime, which we know becomes a monster in terms of the power boost it gives. During the final arc, at times he was able to bully Muichiro, who also possessed the Demon Slayer mark and was considered a prodigy given his age and his power. This man not only sliced off Muichiro's hand, but he also proceeded to stab him with his own sword before he could even react. Even Saname had trouble with Upper Moon number 1 in their battle, and only Gyokko was able to put up enough of a fight to come close to matching his power, with Gyokko having its Demon Slayer mark awaken at one point during that fight. It took Saname and Gyokko fighting together to begin to pressure him, and even then, he was able to fight both of them off simultaneously, despite both of them having their Demon Slayer marks. It took Muichiro, Genya, Saname, and Gyokko working together to ultimately take him down, and that's telling considering he was fighting 3 Demon Slayer hashiras who all possess the Demon Slayer mark, which also gives them a huge amp in their power. Given how he died, it can be argued that it wasn't so much that they killed him, and more so that he let himself get killed due to realizing what he'd become in his pursuit for power. He's also got the ability to see into the transparent world and see the muscles, the blood flow, and the joint movements of his enemies, which allows him to predict movements. Due to his sword being made up of his own living flesh, he's able to regenerate the blade and change its shape, and when we consider his transformed state gives him the power to match that gruesome appearance, it makes him even more dangerous. The same with him being able to adapt to the fighting styles of his enemies and having extensive knowledge of breathing styles, being able to immediately recognize Muichiro's misbreathing after only seeing one attack. As crazy as all that is, his moon breathing becomes even more insane when you realize that we're literally looking at the second most talented swordsman in the history of the franchise, who was so far ahead that it was stated that his skill and Yorichi's skill with the techniques was so advanced they couldn't hope to pass him down to future generations. At number 2, we're going to be going with the original king of the demons, Muzan himself. For 99.95% of the series, Muzan's power only came second to Yorichi, the original Demon Slayer, and for a really good reason. He's broken and was considered the Demon King during 99.95% of the series, undisputed by anyone. We saw him in what was supposed to be a weakened state wipe out 100 Demon Slayers with no issues. He was able to more than fight off Demon Slayer Mark Tanjiro and Giyu in a battle, and it was in the final battle with Muzan that everyone who fought him came to a very harsh realization. They might have fought against other Upper Moons. They might have killed Upper Moons, but Muzan was a whole different tier of power that none of them were physically at. His attacks were so fast and lethal that more than one of the Demon Slayers who fought against him in that final fight couldn't dodge the attacks by seeing them, but instead had to give in to their primal instincts and dodge off of instinct and sheer luck, which is another sign of his power. Being able to fight off 4 marked Hashira and 3 Demon Slayers of Hashira tier power is one of the most impressive displays of power that we have in this series. Muzan's final form isn't something that a lot of fans like based off of what I've seen, but the idea of his body using so many whips is pretty ingenious in my opinion. The Demon Slayers use swords in combat, and Muzan's whips allow him more flexibility and speed than the swords, and they're able to keep the Demon Slayers at a distance, making it harder for them to land solid hits on his core. The whips that he produces were at one point able to outright overwhelm 4 marked Hashira and 3 Hashira level fighters, cutting off Gyokko's leg and cutting off Giyu's arm. He might have eventually been taken down, but he more than took a few people with him in the process. It took all of these powerful fighters, the effects of the drug wearing him down, even to allow for a situation where Iguru and Tanjiro were able to push Muzan into a corner, and even after his stamina plummeting, he still held off the trio of Zenitsu, Tanjiro, and Inosuke despite the handicap. By the time he was eventually defeated, it was with casualties on the Demon Slayer side, and that's going to bring us to number 1 on the list, which is going to be Demon King Tanjiro. Tanjiro surpassing Muzan is pretty poetic, especially given the circumstances that led to Muzan trying to make Tanjiro his next Demon King. While we don't see him as Demon King Tanjiro for long, Demon King Tanjiro is clearly superior to Muzan. It was outright stated that Tanjiro had the potential to be a much bigger problem than Muzan due to the sunlight resistance, and when factoring in he could use sun breathing, there was a belief that Tanjiro would even match or surpass Yorichi, the man who single-handedly almost killed Muzan and spooked Muzan for hundreds of years after their first fight. Demon King Tanjiro was so powerful that it led to Giyu calling him invincible, This is partly due to the fact of how quickly Tanjiro developed resistance to sunlight and is able to move about in the daylight. This by extension means that all Nichiren blades and the red Nichiren blades are less effective against Demon King Tanjiro, and when you add in the regenerative abilities of Demon King Tanjiro, he's the strongest demon we've seen in the series, and it isn't even close. Demon King Tanjiro was shown growing bone-like whips and appendages from his back, meaning his fighting style would have been similar to Muzan's, being able to fight from a distance, but given he was able to use sun breathing, it makes him an even bigger monster. Had Tanjiro never been turned back into a human, there's no doubt in my mind he would have done exactly what the narrative was suggesting, which is either have caught Yoruichi in power or outright surpassed him. However, that's gonna be it for my top 10 strongest demons in Demon Slayer, ranked from weakest to strongest. Let me know if you agree with the list. Let me know who you would slide up or down, or if you feel there was somebody else who deserved to be on here, let me know down in the comment section below.